everyone. Welcome back to another segment of Breaking the Chain with Caitlin, a digital story Vodcast. Each episode, we explore unique roles of various healthcare workers relating to infection prevention and control practices. I'm your host, Caitlin Cosgrove, and today we'll be exploring the importance of teamwork in infection prevention and control. Now it's time to welcome our guest, Gwenda. Hi, Gwenda, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Caitlin. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm really looking forward to your questions. So a little bit about me. I have been a nurse for a very, 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 very long time. I used to work at the Centenary Hospital, which is now called Scarborough Network, I think. It used to be Rouge Valley Health Center. I worked in the coronary care unit for most of my time. And then I also worked in the angiogram room doing angiograms. And I worked at the hospital for 30 years. Wow. And then after 30 years, I realized that I wanted to do something different. So I started teaching at Centennial College. And after a little while at Centennial College, I realized I needed to go back to school. I was a diploma RN and had worked all those years, but my education was lacking when I started teaching. So at age 52, I went back to school and went to Ryerson, got my degree and graduated. And then I said to my husband, if I ever start talking about my master's, tell me no. Well, that only lasted for about a year and a half. And I did my online master's. And at the age of 61, I graduated from Walden University, which is an American university, which was totally online, with my Master's of Master's of Science of Adult Education. So lifelong learning is very important to me. And I'm still teaching at Centennial College. So I teach a couple of subjects, math and health assessment, hence my skeleton behind me. And I just love teaching. And I like sharing stories. That's one of the methods that I do and use in teaching.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I'm so excited to hear about all your experiences. So maybe let's dive into the infection prevention and control questions. So my first question is, what is the role of teamwork in infection prevention and control?
Well, I worked at the bedside during SARS in 2003. And I was at the time I was working in the angio room doing angios, but the angios were closed down, just like what's happening right now. And so all of a sudden I was told, okay, no longer working in the angio room. I was going to be looking after SARS patient and working 12 hours. So all of a sudden, my whole world kind of spun around. And it was very important okay, this is what the expectation is, so this is what I'm going to do. And it was a fast learning curve. And with that fast learning curve, sometimes I had support within the nursing community and sometimes I didn't. I had one very bad experience where I was in isolation looking after my patient who did have SARS, and I think she needed her IV restarted. Mm-hmm. And I called out to the front desk, and here I am, gowned and masked and gloved and the full PPE. And the nurse who answered said, no, you can call the IV team. And I was like, I just need some help. Can you please? And she didn't want to help, which was very disturbing. And they were afraid. And I understand that now looking back, but it was disconcerting to me at the time that I wasn't getting help. There was not a lot of teamwork. one of the other nurses did take the phone and did call the IV team for me. And so it did come out okay. So that was kind of a bad situation. But then they decided the hospital decided to start a SARS clinic. And so the SARS clinic was kind of like the testing. It was the testing. And we all worked really well together. It was a volunteer thing. And we worked in the SARS clinic, admitting patients and deciding who was to be admitted and that type of thing. We had a doctor with us as well, but we were doing all of the assessments. We worked really well as a team. We made sure that when we donned our PPE, that we were all well protected, that we, our face mask didn't slip, and that because one time when I was looking after my SARS patient previously, I had forgotten to put my goggles on over top of my glasses. I went in and I looked after her, and then I got out, and as I'm washing my hands and taking off my PPE, I didn't have my goggles on. And so I took off my glasses, washed them, alcohol washed them, washed my hands, like I panicked.
Yeah.
But in the SARS clinic, we were there with each other, looking after each other to make sure that that was not going to happen. So as a team, we were aware of each other, aware of our surroundings, looking at each other, and like I said, helping to make sure that we were donning and doffing our PPE. And we were there to help each other.
Wow, thank you for sharing. I'm sorry that you had that experience previous where, you didn't have the support you needed, especially like you mentioned in a time where your life just changes like this and everyone's afraid. But I'm also glad to hear that you did have that support of when you volunteered in that clinic, and that you had your team members there that were able to help you make sure, both ways, that everyone had their PPE on properly. And I guess that ties in well with the next question about what are the accountabilities of healthcare providers during an infection outbreak?
Well, when I saw that question, I looked it up on the CNO, and to my surprise, they did not have a standard or guideline for that. So we used to have an infection control, but anyhow, what I did see on it, and I will read it, the standard of care considered during an outbreak and with infection control is completely within context. So you do your best, okay? Certainly in this time today with this huge wave 3 and so many hospitalized patients and the certain amount of burnout that's going on, you do your best. Okay, so the standard is, we all know, about infection control. We know how to down and doff and do what we can, but everything is within context. And the single most important infection control practice is to wash your hands. And we've been saying this for a long, long time. You hear it on the TV, you hear it, from all the infection control people. The other thing that I want to say, and it came out of SARS, was all the alcohol wash stations. Before SARS, we didn't have those alcohol wash stations. Wow. Beside the elevator at the college, beside, as you walk into almost any store now, there's an alcohol wash station. We didn't have that before SARS. So that is something that brought awareness to the general public and all the healthcare workers that washing hands is very important.
Wow, I always thought that those hand washing stations were always there.
Nope. So we have good things come from bad things, the awareness, and those stations being everywhere where they weren't before.
Wow. Yeah. I guess too, as like a student who's still in nursing school, and a lot of my peers were always, wondering like, yes, what are the standards and protocols for when there's an infection outbreak? But like you said, do your best. Be able to follow all the things we've learned with PPE, hand hygiene, additional precautions. So I guess this leads to the next question of, for students who maybe are worried or haven't been to placement, can you offer any tips for students working with other team members of the healthcare team when caring for clients in isolation?
Okay, communication, observing, assessing each other. Communication is a huge thing in working together as a team anyways. And interprofessional teams, people from different professions look at things in a different way. And look, I used to, can I tell another story?
Yes, please.
I used to work doing angiograms, and it was an interprofessional team. It was the patient, part of the team, two nurses, a respiratory therapist, and the doctor, and the radiologist, the X-ray technologist. And we all worked together as a team, and we all communicated really well. And each of us learned a little bit about each other's roles and perceptions of the patient. The X-ray technologist wanted to get the perfect pictures. Okay. He wanted to look after the patient too, but he wanted to make sure that those pictures were perfect so that there was, the diagnosis could be well established. And the nurses were, the circulating nurses was making sure that the patient wasn't having any pain or wasn't uncomfortable. If there was a cardiac arrest, everyone jumped in to do the necessary, giving medications and that type of thing. The doctor was the lead, clearly, but he couldn't have done it without all of us. And it was probably my first experience where really on a daily basis, we had to work together as an interprofessional team. And I draw on that, that experience every day now, because it was a great experience. Communication, which we really did really well, observing, assessment, and assessing each other. And when you see something that needs to be done, you step up to it and you do it, even if it perhaps not part of your focus, your job at that time.
Wow, I really like that tip, because a lot of times, especially for me as a nursing student, I'm always concerned about what I have to do, but really looking at it from a holistic perspective and knowing that, my patient won't receive the best care unless I work with everyone. It's not just my role, it's knowing what everyone else's role is, but also being able to communicate. And I love, the one thing I really love too, what you mentioned, is to step up and work together as a team and communicate to get things done. So yes. Thank you so much. We've reached the end of this episode of Breaking the Chain with Caitlin. Thank you to our guest, Gwenda, for sharing your experiences. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in. Until next time.
And thank you.
Thank you.